Right now, you're holding on to something that's quietly holding you back. A project you've outgrown, a skill you mastered 3 years ago and won't stop leaning on, a version of yourself you keep defending because it's yours. By the end of this, you'll see exactly why your own stuff feels more valuable than it actually is, and what that costs you. There's a famous experiment. Researchers handed half a room a coffee mug, then asked the mug owners to name a price they'd sell it for. The other half they asked, what would you pay to buy one? Same mug, same room. The owners wanted roughly twice what the buyers were willing to spend. Twice. For a mug they'd held for 4 minutes, the economist Richard Thaler called this the endowment effect, and it earned him a Nobel Prize. The second something becomes yours, your brain reprices it upward. Ownership isn't a transaction in your head, it's a transformation. The thing stops being a thing and starts being a part of you. And here's where it stops being about mugs. Because you don't just own objects. You own a half-finished app you've been polishing for 8 months. You own a freelance niche that paid the bills in 2023 and barely covers them now. You own opinions, routines, a morning ritual, a way of training, a story about who you are. All of it got the ownership markup. All of it feels worth more than a stranger looking from outside would ever pay. So the real question isn't whether you have this bias. You do. The question is what it's quietly charging you. Think about the last thing you couldn't quit. Not because it was working, because letting go felt like loss. That feeling has a name in the research, and it's the engine under the whole effect. We hate losing something far more than we enjoy gaining something of equal size. Losing $20 stings harder than finding $20 feels good. The pain is lopsided, and anything you already hold sits on the losing side of that scale. That's why you keep the dead project alive. Quitting it registers as amputation. Watch how this plays out when you try to build something real. You learn a skill, say editing, or cold outreach, or writing code in one specific framework. You get good. That skill becomes part of your identity, and the endowment effect wraps around it like shrink film. Now a better tool appears. A faster method, a whole approach that would make you twice as effective in half the time. And you resist it. You call the new thing a fad, not how real ones do it. You're protecting your inventory. The market doesn't care what your skills feel worth to you. It pays what they're worth to it. This is the trap nobody warns you about when they tell you to find your thing. Finding it is the easy part. The hard part is that the moment you find it, you start over-owning it, and the over-owning is what eventually traps you inside a smaller life than you're capable of. The very intensity that made you good makes you slow to let go. Picture the freelancer who built a real income on one platform. The algorithm shifts. The rates drop. Everyone can see the platform is dying, except the person who built their whole identity on top of it. They keep grinding the dead channel, because leaving means admitting the years of equity they poured in are gone. Sunk cost and the endowment effect shake hands, and together they whisper, stay. You've felt that whisper. The question is whether you've learned to recognize its voice. Here's the part that should make you uncomfortable. The whisper sounds exactly like loyalty. It sounds like grit, like commitment, like all the things you've been told separate the builders from the quitters. So you trust it, you wear your stubbornness like a badge, while it slowly walls you in. The same instinct that helps you push through a hard month on a project that's working also keeps you chained to one that died 18 months ago. The instinct can't tell the difference. Only you can, and only if you stop to look. And looking is the thing your brain is built to skip. Whatever you already own, it files under settled. Settled things don't get re-examined. They just get defended. Now flip it around, because this is where it gets useful. If owning something inflates its value in your mind, then the stuff you don't own yet is systematically undervalued, the skill you haven't learned, the city you haven't moved to, the business model you've never tried. Your brain prices all of it too low, simply because it isn't yours. You're walking around with a permanent discount applied to every door you haven't opened. That's the hidden tax. You overpay to keep what you have and underbid on everything you could become. So how do you fight a bias baked this deep? You can't delete it, but you can outsmart it. And the method is almost embarrassingly simple. The researchers found one reliable lever: change whose eyes you're looking through. Try this. Take the project, the skill, the routine you're clinging to, and ask one question. If I didn't already own this, if it landed in my lap today, brand new, how much would I want it? Would I start this project from scratch right now? Would I choose this niche today, knowing what I know? Would I pick up this exact habit if it weren't already mine? Most of the time, the honest answer lands lower than you'd like. And that gap between what you'd pay to keep it and what you'd pay to acquire it fresh, that gap is the bias made visible. That gap is the money you're leaving on the table. A trader I know has a brutal version of this. Every morning, he looks at his open positions and pretends he holds none of them. Cash account, blank slate. Then he asks, would I buy this today at this price? If the answer is no, he sells. He re-earns every position daily. You can run your whole life on that principle. Would I buy this today? Run it on your projects. Run it on your habits. Run it on the people you spend your hours with. I watched a friend run it on a business he bled into for 2 years. He sat there one night, did the math with fresh eyes, and went quiet for a long minute. Then he said, almost laughing, I wouldn't start this today for free. A week later, he shut it down. 6 months after that, he told me it was the first decision in years that actually felt like his. That's the strange gift hiding inside this whole idea. The endowment effect feels like it's protecting you, and the moment you see through it, you get something back that's worth more than any single project. The ability to choose your own life in real time instead of inheriting it from a past version of yourself. But let me steel man the other side, because there's a real objection here. Quitting everything the second it dips below, would I start this fresh, is a recipe for a life with no roots. Mastery requires staying past the boring part. The dip, where you'd rather start something shiny, is often exactly the dip where the real reward lives. Abandon every position the moment it stops sparkling, and you become a tourist in your own life, deep in nothing. True. So the test isn't, do I still feel excited? Excitement fades from everything worth doing. The test is colder. Knowing what I know now, is this still the best use of what I've got? Sometimes the answer is yes, and you recommit with both hands. The point is to choose on purpose instead of by default, with your fingers stuck to whatever you happen to grab first. Because that's what the endowment effect really steals from you: agency. It turns your past choices into a cage by making them feel more valuable than your future ones. It quietly converts "this is mine" into "this is who I am," into "I can't let this go." 3 small steps, and suddenly a 30-year-old is defending the dreams of a 23-year-old who didn't know any better. You are allowed to outgrow what you built. You're allowed to sell the mug. And notice something the research hints at but rarely says out loud. The endowment effect grows stronger the longer you hold and the more effort you sink in. Time and sweat are exactly what make letting go harder. Which means the most dangerous attachments are the old, expensive ones. The things you've carried so long, you stopped questioning whether you'd choose them again. The skill from 5 years ago. The plan you made before you knew yourself. The identity you wore so long it fused to your skin. Those are the ones to audit first. Not because they're bad, because they're invisible. Here's the reframe that changes how you build from today. Stop thinking of your life as a collection of things you own and start thinking of it as a portfolio you actively manage. Owners hoard, managers reallocate. An owner asks how to protect what they have. A manager asks where the same energy would grow most. Same skills, same hours, same one life. But a manager points them at the highest return instead of the most familiar one. You don't have to torch everything to think like this. You just have to stop letting mine function as an argument. It's mine tells you who's holding it. It tells you nothing about whether you should keep holding it. So do the audit this week. Pick the one thing you defend the hardest. The project, the skill, the belief you'd argue for the loudest. And run the fresh eyes question on it without flinching. Maybe you keep it and finally commit for real reasons. Maybe you set it down and feel a year of weight lift off your back. Either way, you chose. You stopped paying the ownership tax on autopilot. The people who build lives that are genuinely theirs aren't the ones who grip the hardest. They're the ones who can open their hands on purpose, look at what's sitting there, and decide again. And again, every single thing you own is also something you're choosing to keep carrying. So carry it, because you'd grab it today. Or finally, find out how fast you move once your hands are free.